debate. intelligencesquared.com.
Scott is another esteemed art market journalist who currently writes for Bloomberg and has written for the Antiques Trade Gazette and Art and Auction for many years. So, Scott, you have 9 minutes to convince us of the motion. Thank you.
Now I know how the UK feels in the Eurovision Song Contest. I think if we're going to think about this motion in a balanced and unprejudiced way, I think we should define our terms. And for me, the central term for this debate is the art market. What do we actually mean by the art market? There's something inherently pejorative about the term, I think, for a lot of you, like the Eurovision Song Contest. For a lot of people, it conjures up images of height-deranged billionaires spending record prices for artistic fashion statements at auctions. But that boom was 4 years ago, and that boom has gone bust. We're now talking about the here and now, well, I am at least, and things have changed. The art market now is a much subtler, more pervasive, and actually more powerful influence in the art world than it's ever been. Let me give you some examples. Take this building. We're now in the middle of the art market. This is a private museum created by a wealthy individual who quite openly buys and sells art. He continually purchases works from all over the world and exhibits them in a space where we, the general public, for free, can make our own judgments. If we want to get an authoritative, even more authoritative and wider overview of the world of contemporary art, we don't go to the Tate, which, as been pointed out, has got some weaknesses in its collection. We should go to the Frieze Art Fair, which has an absolutely unprecedented range of dealers and artists from all over the world. That's the art market as well. Now, academics, when they're analysing the relationship between art and notions of value, usually draw a distinction between two terms. Economic capital, that's the financial judgments of dealers and collectors, and symbolic capital, that's the aesthetic judgments of critics and museum curators. In recent years, there's been a tectonic shift in the balance of power between these two artistic value systems. Let me demonstrate. In 1943, a little-known painter called Jackson Pollock was given a one-man show in a gallery in New York. It was given a rave review by the all-influential critic Clement Greenberg, and one of the larger works, The She-Wolf, was bought by MoMA. A critic and a museum had made Pollock famous virtually overnight. In early 2011, a little-known painter called Jacob Cassay was given a one-man show in a gallery in New York. The event attracted little attention from mainstream critics. In May, a work by this artist sold at auction for $290,000. Suddenly, everyone got interested. The following month at Art Basel fair in Switzerland, a dealer sold an installation by Cassay, who's 26, for $400,000. Next week, a one-man Cassay show will open at the Institute of Contemporary Arts. Now, it's a publicly funded museum. The new director formerly worked for a dealer. Jacob Cassay is a hot artist, and that heat, that word-of-mouth reputation for being a good artist, has been created by and will be sustained by the market. Increasingly, it's dealers and collectors with private foundations, the Saatchis, the Pinots, the Rubels, who make artistic reputations, not critics and museum curators. This trend will continue, and these reputations are made before mainstream critics even get a look at these artists. Tom Wolfe, in his book The Painted Word, writes about the sense of absolute authority that radiated from Clement Greenberg. Wolfe says the art critic was the voice of Bohemia. We now live in very different times from the 50s and 60s. With all due respect to my distinguished opponents and the chair, there isn't an art critic writing today with that magnitude of influence. Sales of serious newspapers and specialist magazines are declining, as are the attention spans of their readers. There is the internet, of course, but online, where everyone is a critic, the subjectivity of individual judgment is infinitely multiplied, contradicted, and diluted. We also live in relativist times, where value judgments, when expressed in words, can be inherently problematic. Today, it's difficult to imagine a book like John Berger's Success and Failure in Picasso being written, let alone published. Specialist art writing is badly paid, and everyone has to get on with their careers. A culture of approbation has set in. If you spend an evening reading specialist art magazines, and if you can do this, I'd recommend a stiff drink, you will quickly discover, before you fall asleep, that pretty well all contemporary art is good. The market, on the other hand, has a more selective view, and it did so even during the boom. In 2007, Damien Hirst tried to sell a diamond-encrusted platinum skull for $99 million. It was a sign of those times and Hirst's hubris that so much of the significance, the meaning of that particular work was embodied in its unprecedented price tag. No individual was prepared to pay it. In the market's judgment, the subsequent announcement that Hirst himself was part of a consortium that had bought the sculpture was therefore an admission of artistic failure. And yet the market also tells us that overall, Hirst is the most significant British artist of his generation. In September 2008, just at the moment when Lehman Brothers went bust, Sotheby's sold a collection of new works by him for £111 million. He said in an interview in the Financial Times in December, in a different accent, "I like walking down the street and being recognized by businessmen. Now businessmen are thinking, that man has made £100 million in a single night." Now, we've had the great cliche of Van Gogh as the artistic martyr, and I'm not going to take the rap for his death. Now, some artists seem to regard the market as the defining measure of their talents, even when they're exhibiting in publicly funded galleries. Recently, a colleague of mine was castigated in an email by a YBA, who shall remain nameless, for forgetting that he'd sold a sculpture for £1 million while it was on show in a British museum, which shall also remain nameless. State-subsidized galleries are traditionally perceived as institutions where objective and scholarly assessment of art can take place, rising above the champagne-swilling venalities of the marketplace. Yet in the last few years, a number of publicly funded museums, which shall remain nameless, have been used as shop windows for art. The institutions deny the works are for sale, the dealers deny the works are for sale, and yet there is a thickening file of evidence that demonstrates deals are being done on the back of these museum shows. The growing role of the art market in public spaces is understandable. Western museums are facing a crisis in funding. All I would like to see is some transparency, a realization that the art world, like so many other aspects of our lives, is in the grip of a new reality. Our debate gives us an opportunity to formally recognize this new reality. But that hasn't happened. The auctions keep happening, different records are set, the art fairs keep proliferating. People still look up the latest price of Hirst and Warhol on ArtNet. This is an elephant in the room that can't be shooed away. And finally, if I can flip to the page, we might not like the idea that the commercial interests have gained the upper hand in the realm of art. Final sentence. This might not feel like the best of outcomes, but actually, by accepting change, by recognizing the market has become the prevailing force of judgment, this might enable us to become better judges of art ourselves. Thank you.